We're in the Panamera 4S diesel again. It's the V8 model, 416 horsepower. I think it's 850 newton meters of torque, so the performance is incredible. I think it's something like 0 to 62 in 4.2 seconds. Electronic systems that are in this car and the chassis design, etc., and the fact it's got four-wheel drive really makes the car feel like it's a lot smaller than it is.
Is electronic now?
Yes, it's all haptic, so except for the nil silver buttons, everything is a haptic feedback. So there's switches underneath this kind of glass plate on the dash, and they vibrate when you press them down. It seems to work okay 8 out of 10 times, I think we found, isn't it?
To me, I would say you can't feel. You have to look at the display to actually push the button.
Ergonomics in the cabin in terms of dealing with the let's say the switchless interface and the center console, where it's got the glass cover and it uses haptics feedback, and the dash, everything's electronic, touch sensitive. It's difficult to make a simple change like adjusting the vents or even changing the radio channel without actually having to look and reach to see what you're doing, because you can A, not hit the button you want to hit, and B, hit the wrong thing. So that's a bit of an annoyance. I'm not really so keen on that. The other thing was, in terms of ergonomics, was the pedal position of the brake, and potentially you could say the same about the accelerator. They're very offset to the right. Outside the car, the only thing that we saw that was a little bit grating was a bit of condensation in one of the rear lights. It's certainly not bad. It's not impacting the ability of the car to put the lights on, but it's not something you expect. It is a wide car. It's deceptively wide actually, because it doesn't feel wide when you're driving like this on one of these roads, but country road, single track road, yeah, it's a wide car, it's a big car, but it drives like a much smaller, much more sporty car. So I've got the car in the sport chassis mode. I'm going to put the gearbox across into manual, drop it to 4th gear, there we go. Level of grip, and it's a damp road, and acceleration is absolutely incredible. This V8 turbocharged Porsche engine, which is a Porsche design engine, I'm led to believe it is actually created by Porsche. I think it was actually their own first complete 100% ground up engine design of diesel, and unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on which side of the fence you're sitting on, it may be the last. Because I had a look at the configurator yesterday, last night, to have a look a bit more about the diesel in terms of the standard spec and things like that, and it's actually been removed from the UK configurator. It really is effortless to drive, I have to say. This is a very tricky road to drive, and it is easy. I mean, it's probably easier driving this road than something like a Ford Fiesta or Ford Focus, because the grip level you've got and the balance and the engine torque is just great. It never really needs to change. You could be on the Autobahn at 140, 150 miles per hour, and it would still sound the same as this car doing 30, 40 miles per hour, and it would be pulling, I don't know, 2,500 revs in 8 gear. You wouldn't be stretching the engine. It would have plenty of overtaking left, and you'd still probably be able to get an average of 30 to 32 miles per gallon. This car's got air suspension, and I have to say I'm not so keen on it. I really thought I was going to enjoy it, and it was going to be lovely and comfortable. And what happens is, if you get a large bump, you ride that bump the first time, the car rides over it, sort of glides over it, which is nice, but you get a secondary and tertiary vibration through the chassis. So you feel like for every bump you feel smaller second and third bumps, let's say. It's kind of a weird sensation. So you kind of get a floaty undulation sensation when you go over some rough ground, which I'm not sure I'm so keen on. I'd prefer this car with the PASM suspension and the steel springs, rather than spending the £1,500, £1,700, whatever it is, upgrading to the air suspension. Bit of lack of feel in the steering at some speeds. It's not a problem by any stretch, but you kind of don't really feel what the wheels are doing. So you don't kind of feel the grip level, let's say, of the wheels. And that's really not a problem, because this car's got four-wheel drive and stability management, Porsche traction management. But it would be nice to have a little bit more feel. When you put your foot down, and you really have to put your foot down, you do hear a bit of a V8 rumble, a burble coming from the back of the car. You don't hear any roughness. It just sounds really silky smooth, actually. It's not as loud by any stretch as a petrol V8, but it does really sound quite nice. Okay, so this is 6th gear. And it's like 3rd gear in any other car. It's absolutely incredible, the torque level. Myself and Ken went out in it on Saturday, and he's a good buddy of mine from the Porsche Club, and we did quite a lot of driving, most of it in the rain, it has to be said, and we were shocked how quick this thing is. But we were also shocked at quite how big it is and difficult it is to move around in tight spaces. So when you're parking this thing, it needs an extra lock to turn over, at least an extra lock to turn over let's say a 5 Series BMW. And you have to really watch the front end of the car in terms of car parking for curbs, and the rear end when it comes round on you. Well, I'm not talking about a slide, but when you do a tight turn and the rear end comes around, you have to watch that there's no car tight on your other side when the back comes round, so you don't clonk them or they clonk you. So you really have to be very aware of the size and also the weight of the car. I mean, this is a 2-ton car for all intents and purposes. The brakes are not carbon fibres. I mean, they're huge rotors, ventilated rotors, and they've got cuttings on the side, so they improve the cooling. But it would really benefit. I really think this car would benefit from the Porsche ceramic carbon brakes for 2 reasons. One is it will control the suspension better on the corners due to the lack of weight. So I guess the question is, what's the rating and would I buy one? Yeah, I mean, the rating, if you were to look objectively at this car, you'd give it a 9 out of 10, maybe even a 9.5 out of 10. It's not a 10 out of 10 car because of the ergonomics, but you know, 9.5 is pretty good going. As usual, I'd like to extend my thanks to 2 people in terms of making the use of this car possible. That's Andy Crabb, franchise director at Porsche Mid-Sussex, and David Lees, my salesman at that centre. They're always extremely flexible.
You will reach your destination after 150 yards. You have reached your destination. The destination is on the right side of the road.